All right. Can Mary and Emily, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, I know.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are going to get started here just right on time. Hello. Thank you all for joining me today and for a review of the VMLS rules and regulations. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function or unmute yourself as needed. There are not very many of you in the class today, so feel free to just jump in if you have anything, any questions. It's going to be about 15 minutes of material, and then I'm happy to answer any additional questions at the end as well. This is all going to be recorded and made available to the VBR membership as well. So today we're going to be covering a number of different topics within the realm of the VMLS rules and regs. We're going to be discussing some key points of data standards for entry into the MLS. We'll talk about the VMLS broadcast email system, Century Lock, and finishing with a quick review of some fair housing rules. All right, to start, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the available statuses in the MLS and the definitions. The first is our newest status, coming soon. Coming soon signifies that a property has been secured with a listing agreement but is not ready to go active in the MLS. There are a lot of additional rules that will govern this status and what you're permitted to do and what you're not permitted to do. That is its own separate class. All of these rules are in Exhibit E of the VMLS rules and regs, and that class has also been recorded. So I would suggest if you're interested in using this marketing strategy, please review the class before you go ahead and do that. We're not going to dive too much deeper into it today, but again, reference that other class. Active signifies that a property has been listed in the MLS and is being actively marketed. Pending signifies that a property is under contract. Withdrawn means that a property has been temporarily, has been temporarily withdrawn from the MLS. Deleted signifies that a property should not have been entered and is going to be permanently removed from the MLS. Canceled signifies that the seller is permanently canceling the listing with the listing broker prior to the expiration of the listing date. There is a difference between canceled and withdrawn, so please make sure you are aware of those differences. Expired signifies that the end of the listing period has come to pass. When a listing is going to be expired or has been expired, you as the member have a 10-day window to reactivate it. This was recently discussed by the VMLS Operations Committee, and they determined that 10 days was a sufficient amount before you have to either ask me to reactivate it. If it's beyond a month, we will have you just make a new listing. Closed signifies that a property has been sold and closed. One of the most frequent violations that occur in the MLS is related to the required time frame that members have to update a listing status. Statuses must be updated 2 business days from the effective date. This means that members have 2 days from when an agreement is signed to enter it into the MLS. If the property is sold, the members have 2 days to update it into the MLS. For properties that go under contract, you are required to update the listing in the MLS within 2 business days of the effective date. There's not any leniency or any different rules for the arrival of earnest money. So once the contract has been mutually executed, that 2-day window begins. Are there any questions at this point? Great. The clear cooperation policy. This is a new one, and it is definitely, it also has its own class. But it essentially states that within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. Public marketing includes, but is not limited to, flyers displayed in the window, yard signs, digital marketing on public-facing websites, brokerage website displays, digital communications, multi-listing brokerage, sharing networks, applications to the general public. If it is not in the MLS, you are only permitted to share it with those within your office or direct to those that you have a client relationship with. Again, this is a complicated topic that, along with coming soon, has its own class. The coming soon status was added to allow for a listing to be entered into the MLS and promoted publicly while you are waiting for pictures, painting, just kind of wanting to wait until the busy winter or summer season kicks up. Again, very simplified version of this rule. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to talk about it additionally after this class, or share the link to the Clear Cooperation and Coming Soon class. Days on market. The ADOM for days on market is the active days on market, and it will reset to 0 after 90 days of the status being canceled or expired. It will also reset to 0 if the last status of that property was sold, and it will also reset to 0 if it is listed with a new company. The CDOM will reset to 0 365 days after a listing is canceled or expired. It'll also reset if the last status was sold. I've had a lot of questions come in about why our rules are set up this way and can we shorten it, or that 90 days is a long time. This was determined by the committees and the boards that look at this to prevent the intentional manipulation of days on market. And this was felt to be kind of a standard way to protect that integrity and that the importance of that number. So now we can jump to some specific data and listing entry violations. I guess before we get too specific, we'll talk about some of the more common violations and the more serious violations that all of our members should be aware of. Some of the more common violations to avoid are inaccurate listing information, including branded content in public-facing sections, and the timing issue we already addressed. When we say inaccurate listing information, there are common mistakes where you miss the square footage by 1 or 2 feet, and there are bigger inaccurate listing violations such as mislisting the number of bedrooms or the area that the property is located in. So there are it's really important that you make sure that everything you're entering into the MLS is accurate to the best of your knowledge. Branding, any of the public-facing areas of our MLS has to be unbranded. That includes public remarks, virtual media, documents. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So it's really important that if it's going out to other members' clients and other third-party sites via IDX, that it is unbranded. And then timing, we already talked about, 2 days from the effective date has to be updated in the MLS. More serious violations that we should be aware of is sharing your login information across any MLS system. This is SentryLock. This is the MLS. There, you pay a lot for the integrity of this system, and we want to make sure that that's maintained. And sharing passwords, sharing login information is the quickest way to dilute that value. Another big violation to be aware of is entering a listing without a listing agreement. Sometimes you might get ahead of yourself, but it is a $1,000 violation to enter a listing into the MLS and without a listing agreement. And finally, displaying inaccurate MLS data via RETS or IDX. When you set up a RETS feed or an IDX feed, you are responsible for how that information is then presented. So if it is inaccurate, we will work with you to try to get it corrected, but if it is not corrected, a fine will be assessed. All right. Data standards, remarks, and branding. I talked about this briefly, but we'll dive in a little bit more. The remarks are intended to be read by the public, so certain types of information within those remarks field is prohibited. Inappropriate entries include contact information, email addresses, phone numbers, websites, anything that could link the public to your company name or contact. References to the listing broker, showing instructions, that's a huge security risk. Make sure the showing instructions are correctly entered in the field showing instructions. Any marketing comments intended for realtors, this could be seller is desperate, bring an offer, that should not be included in the public remarks, and then any other personally identifiable information. Branded content also in public-facing aspects of the listing. This includes photos, virtual media, and documents. So any photos need to be unbranded. Virtual media, if it is hosted on a third-party site, that third-party site has to be unbranded. Personal websites need to be unbranded if they're linked from the MLS, and documents. This was a issue when we switched over to Flex MLS, as a lot of the documents were branded. But one nice thing about Flex MLS is that if you are sharing a disclosure or something that is generated with your office name or your name on it, you can set that privacy level to private, which means only MLS members will be able to see it. So you can still share those important disclosures and not be in violation of those rules. So just remember, if you're uploading a document that does have your name or your office or your business, just set it to private. Tax information has to be current and accurate. I think that's fairly straightforward. And transfer taxes, fees, and assessments also have to be accurate. Eagle County has a lot of different transfer fees versus a transfer tax versus one area versus the other. So do make sure you do your diligence and enter that information correctly. Photography. Photos are required to enter a listing into our MLS, a minimum of 1. It must represent the property. Which means that if you are just entering the one photo, it can't be of Vail Village if the listing is in Eagle. It also means that any views that you are showing must be accurate to what's on the property. It's really important, especially when it comes to digitally enhanced photos. For example, if you were to Photoshop a beautiful sunset from a balcony that is east facing. If using photos that another member or another photography has taken, you must have permission. Uploading copyrighted material is prohibited. It is a $500 fine per photo for every photo that is uploaded. So make sure that you don't just copy previous listings photos. It's the owner or the seller says, yeah, the listing agent that sold it to me gave me all these photos. You need to verify that that actually is accurate and you have permission to use those photos. Other data standards. Correct broker office and agent, selling broker office and agent. This confuses a lot of people sometimes, because when you are entering the closing information, it will ask for the selling agent and selling offer, and many people will logically say, well, I'm the one processing the sale, I'm selling it. However, that means the buyer's representative is the selling broker or office. So make sure that you put their representation in there accurately. The sold price that you enter must be the same as what's recorded with Eagle County. And you also have to have the accurate square footage and disclose the source of that square footage. So if there is any discrepancy, any assessors or other members appraisers or other members will know where that discrepancy is rooted in. To list a room as a bedroom, it must have an egress to the exterior of the property. We don't have any explicit closet rules. And if you want to include a den or a loft to the exterior of the property, if you want to include a den or a loft in the bedroom count, it must be included. It must have a egress to the exit. I would also recommend following what's on the Eagle County Assessor's site to make sure that those numbers are aligned. It's also very important that you input the current HOA dues, their billing cycle, and inclusions. There are a lot of different HOAs versus resort fees versus metro fees. We have fields for all of these to be entered, so please make sure that you are sharing that important information accurately, so buyers, agents don't have to be calling to ask what the actual price of ownership is. To call a property ski in or ski out, you need to either be able to ski in directly to your property line or ski out directly to your property line. That's just how we define it. So it's important to know that if you cannot ski to the property line, it's not ski in. If you can't ski out from the property line, it's not ski out. All right. Before we move to the broadcast email, are there any questions? Great. So now we're going to talk about broadcast email. The BES, broadcast email, I'm going to refer to it as BES, is an email relay that's when sent, will send an email to all subscribers. I do not filter them. I don't check them. All of the policing has to be done retroactively. So if you accidentally send an email out to everyone, I cannot recall it. It will go out to everyone. So make sure you take the time, double check everything before you send it out. We do have 7 different email lists. We have new build, open house, real estate, open forum, for sale, general news, rental, and each of these has its own set of rules, which we're going to go over. First, to get started, to subscribe to a particular list, go to vbr.net and select broadcast email from the members home dropdown, select the list you want, and enter your email address to subscribe. To unsubscribe, you can just click the unsubscribe button at the bottom of any email received from the BES. We can also set a vacation hold if you just want to put a pause on your emails. So please be sure to let Jen or I know if you need a vacation hold on that. Open house. Only properties that are currently listed as active within the MLS can be promoted through the open house email list. Some subject topic lines could be broker tour, public, save the date. Just please be mindful of sending multiple announcements for the same broker tour open house so members can search easily. Typically, I would recommend sending one to announce it, and then one to say, a few days in advance, and then one to say, hey, open today. Any more than that, across any of our email lists, you tend to see diminishing returns on the number of emails you send. People tend to get frustrated. So just be mindful of that. For real estate, we have several permitted topics, and every email sent has to adhere to one of those permitted topics. There's new listing, price change, need, incentive, vacant, back on market, and new media and photos. With the addition of coming soon, we will be adding a coming soon topic to this list. The way our association is set up, any rule changes to the MLS rules have to first be approved by the MLS, and then by the VBR board. They've been approved by the VMLS board. We're waiting for approval from the VBR board. So by the end of this week, we will have one more additional topic for coming soon listings. Just please be aware that each of these topics has their own frequency and their own permitted number of times you can send. Some of them, again, don't have you can only send X number of emails. It just says, like for new listing, you can send it anytime if it was active in the last 2 weeks. Again, you're going to get diminishing returns if you send any more emails than 1 per day. People tend to get really frustrated if their inbox gets flooded with one property. So just be mindful of that when sending emails. For new build is where you would send any emails concerning multiple lots in the same area or new developments, new construction. Once construction has been completed, it should no longer be considered a new build, and then it can be listed as a new listing under the real estate list. Open forum is a list that kind of covers anything else. It's discussion items such as political opinions, community discussions, personal events, garage sales, that kind of thing. Just please be mindful and kind to each other on this email list. For sale is for non-real estate items that are for sale. Please include what you have or what's available in the subject line. It can be furniture, cars, anything. You can that's for sale is the list for that. General news. This is where you would post any service inquiries, plumbers, home repair services, painters, etc. Only affiliate members are allowed to promote their businesses. So if a friend is opening a new gym and they want to get the word out and they ask you to send an email to general news promoting this, they would need to become an affiliate member of the VBR in order to promote their business. For sponsored events, only the brokerages or the affiliates that are sponsoring the events are allowed to send out the announcements. They have to be clearly indicated on that announcement that they are a sponsor of that event. Any help wanted or job opening posts that you want to post to the general news list do have to be real estate related. For the rentals, it's long-term, short-term, available, need. Whatever you need to use it for, as long as it's concerning rentals, that is permitted. This list, you are allowed to send emails on behalf of others. So if a neighbor is trying to rent out a room or their condo for the winter, you can help facilitate that. There does not need to be an offer of commission or anything along those lines. All right, just some other broadcast email things to consider. The open house email list is set at 6 megs. The real estate email list, maximum email file size is set at 6 megs. Maximum file size for real estate list is set to 4. If you find your email is not going through, but you're not getting a rejected email bounce back, this is usually what the issue is. It'll take it, but it can't send it out because it's too big. Try to resize the pictures. A lot of times we get these beautiful high resolution pictures, but those can also limit the effectiveness of the email. So make sure if it's not working, it's usually the size. Other things to be aware of: reply all is prohibited for all broadcast email groups. Forward is prohibited in all subject lines. So make sure that if you are reusing an email that was previously sent, you are cleaning up that subject line, taking out any of the previous addresses, and making sure that it looks clean. Sometimes it can get caught in spam filters if you have a forward and then reply all. Everyone knows the dangers of replying all to a big email list. Email messages should be posted to the correct list. If you are unsure of the list or need a refresher on the topics, please feel free to contact me. It's always easier to talk it out first before I have to follow up with a reminder. For offenses of these rules, first offense, you'll get a warning explaining what the violation was. Second offense, it'll be a 2-week suspension from the broadcast email. Third offense is a 1-month suspension from the broadcast email. So please be aware of those things. 2 replies all could be pretty detrimental. All right, now we're moving on to SentryLock. SentryLock is the lockbox system we use at the VBR. The rules for these are pretty extensive and could be a class unto itself, so please be sure to reference Exhibit B of the VMLS rules and regulations for the full detail. Just want to share some additional key points of this. Do not share your login information. That is one of the more serious violations across the VMLS. Make sure that the SentryLock is secure by keeping your password and your username to yourself. Unlicensed admin and assistants may not have SentryKey access. SentryKey is the app that VMLS members will use to access the lockbox. Unlicensed admin, assistants, and other unlicensed affiliates should use Sentry Connect. Sentry Connect is a different app, and it can be downloaded by any unlicensed affiliate, assistants, or non-BBR member realtors. And access can be sent directly from your SentryKey app to the recipient. It is the safest and most secure way to grant the access. All they need to do is download the app, set up an account once, and then using their email, you can grant them access for a specific time. If the Sentry Connect does not work, or if for some reason it's just not going to work, you can still use a 1-day code, but it is required that you enter the full name and phone number of the person receiving access in the assigned to field. So please make sure that you are submitting all of that information. There is some fines associated with violations of that. So if you have to do a 1-day code, full name, phone number in the assigned to field. All right. Finally, we're just going to talk briefly on fair housing. The VBR and the VMLS is committed to ensuring and educating on fair housing practices in our community, and we do not require any specific language to be used when describing features. We want to always encourage our members to be aware of how some common phrasing can be interpreted, and to try to use a little bit more open language when possible. Some of these are, obviously we've all heard the master bedroom and bath. conversation that is taken throughout the industry. Some other things to be considered are some gendered terms, Jack and Jill sinks, his and her closets, man cave. As opposed to using words like that, you can call it a primary bedroom or bath, double sinks, two closets, activities room. Other common descriptors, especially for some homes with yards, family for a backyard, watch the kids run and play. You can just call it a great backyard. Walking distance could be considered ableist. So instead of describing the walk, you can describe how close the proximity to other attractions. American dream versus everyone's dream. These are just some things to kind of think about introspectively and just try to remember, you want to describe the property, not the inhabitants. If you have any questions, my contact information is right there on the screen. I'm more than happy to sit here and answer any additional questions. I see Terry and Carla joined us. Again, this session is recorded. It's going to be posted online. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Well, if we don't have any questions, I will go ahead and end the session. I really appreciate you all taking the time to review some of these rules. It's really important that we have accurate data and that we're all following the rules that we all agree to in the MLS. It makes the whole process of selling real estate a lot easier if we're all playing on the same terms. So thank you all again. If you have any questions, please feel free and have a great day.